We are here this morning to give a kavod achron to Zev Elimelech ben Yitzchak Isaac. And if I say this, I'm not saying it lightly. Anyone in the room will tell you that he was a prince of a man. Not just was he a prince of a man, he married a queen. And anyone in the neighborhood, anywhere where their children live, anywhere throughout America, Seattle, Eretz Yisrael, it doesn't make a difference. Anyone that knows Professor Dr. William Billy, you picked the name, he was all of them, will attest to the fact that he was a prince and his wife Miriam is a queen. I've been in the neighborhood now for 25 years. I don't know how many times I was in their house when Miriam and Billy had a Sheva Bracha, a Bar Mitzvah, a Kiddush, a Siyum, whatever they had. It wasn't upstairs in the dining room, it was downstairs. What do you call that room? The simcha room, the family room, the get-together room, the eating room, all-purpose room, and there were 30, 40, 50, 60 people in the room. Professor Dr. William Billy served as the MC, but it only lasted for a minute, and Miriam took over. We're going to begin with the Kapitel Tehillim. I'd like to call upon Shani Bechhofer for the first Kapitel Tehillim, please.
That's how it, right?
Yeah.
Ashrei ha'ish, asher lo halach ba'atzas v'sha'im, uv'derech chata'im lo amad, uv'moshav leitzim lo yashav, ki im besoras Adonai chefzo, uv'soraso yehege yomam v'layla. V'haya ke'etz shasul al palgei mayim, asher piryo yitain bi'ito, ve'alehu lo yibol, v'chol asher ya'aseh yatzliach. Lo chen harishayim, ki im kamotz asher tidfenu ruach. Al kein lo yakumu rishayim b'mishpat v'chatoim ba'adas tzadikim. Ki yodea Adonai derech tzadikim, v'derech rishayim toved.
Next Kapitel Tehillim, Harav Ari Jacobson. Either one.
Mizmor LeDavid Adonai Roi Lo V'nastash V'yarbitzeini Al Mei Menuchas Yinahaleini Nafshi Shav V'yancheini V'aglei Tzedek L'man Shemo Gam Ki Elech V'geitz Al Moves L'yira Ra Ki Ato Imodi Shevdecha Mishantecha Heimo Yinachamuni Tarech Lefanai Shulchan Neged Soriroi V'shand V'shem Rashi Kasi Rivaya Achtav v'chesed yidefuni kol yimei chayoi v'shavdi v'es Adonai liyorech yomim.
I'm going to be nostalgic for the next 2 minutes. The shul has been around for close to 58 years. Many of you have come in the room 50 years ago, 55, 60 years ago, and you were the founders. And when you did come, part of your initiation was signing the mortgage, which the Schreibers did, and many in the room have done. Many years ago, whenever they married off children, in our social hall, there used to be a Sheva Bracha, where the group would sponsor Sheva Brachas for their friends' children that got married. And there would always be a speaker or two. For some reason, everyone that I went to, which is probably 100, the first, the most fabulous, the most eloquent, the most dynamic, the most personal speaker in the room, hands down, was Safta Miriam Schreiber. She's great. She's phenomenal. This is the first time she's giving a hesped on a husband. But if I tell you that she speaks with eloquence and beauty and from the heart, we're going to start with Safta Miriam.
I hope I can do Billy justice. There were two issues Billy dealt with when we entered the hospital. Besides aspiral pneumonia, he developed a virus that put him in isolation. This enabled me to be there for Billy 24/7. I was so nervous they would not let me stay. I never left the room after visiting hours and only surfaced when visiting hours began. I thank you also for stopping by to talk to Billy, to see how he was. Dovey Shebetoski, who was so intent on having Billy enter a rehab program. He would pull all kinds of strings. Dr. Gottesman, Victor Fried, Rabbi Lerfeld, Dr. Mark Radin, and my neighbor, Avram Gelman, who came every night to make sure we would have food to eat. You didn't feel so alone when these people came. Thank you for my children. Each had their task to make sure Billy was evaluated and taken care of in the right way. They were constantly on the phone, finding out results. You were there every step of the way, as you have been all these years. It was January 1967, and Billy always prided himself that he helped set up all the chairs for his wedding. My mother baked 1,000 cookies. Bobby Amy made the meatballs and chopped liver. This was the community's dream, that Billy and I would get married. There was even a non-Jewish band that learned how to play Oja Shama. They were ready for business thanks to Melech and Alec. From a very young age, Billy learned with different rabbeim. In his senior year at Garfield's, he went to Torah B'das and then to YU, where he obtained his doctorate in physics. In his Aufrufen speech, Moshe said, Billy was always the smartest man in the room. He wasn't, but most important to the children and grandchildren he was. How many people do you know that can discuss string theory, neutrons, learn a block Gomorrah in its original source, read about opening moves in chess, and rumors had it that he even played for the master chess player Bobby Fischer. He also appreciated classical music and discussed Bolero by Ravel or Mendelssohn's Violin Concerto. All his children and grandchildren treated with utmost respect and appreciated him for who he was. It was Moshe's daughter's birthday party. I got there late, and Moshe asked me a question, what had happened? Billy arrived even later. Billy apologized, but Moshe said, don't worry, sit down, relax. You also had to know that Billy lived on space-time. Time was another dimension. One of his highlights in life was going in Detroit on Sukkot and buying Kol Na'orim. He's so proud with his children at his side under the tallis. The joy was almost palpable. Billy was an independent thinker and thought outside of the box. He stood up for his principles and belief. And if he was the only one in the room, it didn't matter. David Jacobson used to say that no one told Billy what to do. Thank you, David, for all the years of friendship, talking about YU, learning together. Even though Billy was not himself in Israel, the friendship ended on a high note. Billy once said, $5 doesn't mean anything to you, but it does to other people. He never turned any away. We probably paid for a few college tuitions. If there was an appeal that night, he would send in the check. Did you mail the check? He would say to me. Sometimes I lied. I did it the next day. Billy was simple, but complicated, a complicated individual. He wasn't a hustler. He wrote many papers and received the Dolphin Award for his research. He didn't do it for any achievement, for any awards. He did it because he loved it. When someone took credit for his paper one time, he wouldn't say a thing. He always gave people the benefit of the doubt. so even in academia could be brutal. When Billy had a stroke 5 years ago, he was determined to go back to teaching. As soon as he left the hospital, he shunned the walker. He didn't want to be dependent upon it. The semester was very difficult this semester, with 90 students in one class. He had a new book, a 300-page new book, and he would stay up at night, sifting through the book, finding all the right problems to make it easier for his students. Walking became difficult and an issue, and he barely made it to the class. I would carry his books like people used to do in the olden days for the boyfriend or girlfriend and make sure he made it to class. Yet he knew that his career was winding down. And then to relax, it was to Barnes & Noble with his physics book in tow. The barristers knew the professor. Half a cup of coffee, half a cup of water, and three sweeteners. Billy had OCD, and sometimes it would be very difficult for him. Everyone in the family knew that his possessions had to be put in a certain place. And as long as I live in the house, everything will remain just like you left it. The hat on the top shelf, your Tolleson to film in the drawer next to your red sitter when no one ever touched. I am wearing your watch today. The Timex for $29, which you were very proud of. It was lightweight. It couldn't be a more perfect watch. Thank you for marrying me, the refugee girl from 2602 East Spring Street. My cousin Paula always wanted to be part of the family. On the long Friday nights, I started to read The Prime Minister. I knew Billy would love it, but would never actually read it. But we didn't ever reach the end. Coming from Seattle, we love rain, and there was nothing like a cozy, chilling Shabbos afternoon. I would often say to Billy, let us cherish these moments. We may not have them again. Billy's 80th birthday was celebrated at the Kotel. Billy learned his Parsha, and the grandchildren that Billy taught learned part of it. Not only did Billy teach his children and grandchildren to learn, when Billy gave a Devar Torah, everyone listened. He always had an original thought and quote that will be remembered. When asked, how do you view your marriage? His answer simply, love, simple love. And that love encompassed his whole life. He loved his work, he loved his Yiddishkeit and his family. We're going to miss you terribly, but you had your shtick, but that is what made you who you were. As you left the hospital, we played Yoni and Dovi's blessing of the Kohanim. We were blessed to have you in our lives. We hope you did you justice. You were always a role model for the family by being who you were. In one of your speeches, you said, we stand on the shoulders who came before us, and now the next generation will stand on your shoulders. We hope we make you proud. You will always be in our hearts, Ze'ev Elimelech and Yitzhak Isaac. Today, as we gathered around the table, I felt it should be a bar mitzvah where Billy was reviewing Lil Laney for one of the grandchildren. But it wasn't. It was your funeral. I want to say that I asked my tefillah from Billy. I try to be there for you. You were so special in every way. And you left at a hospital on dignity. No feeding tube. No aid. I ask you, Michaela, I love you very much. And by the way, I wrote this speech on the back of his test.
Hespedim delivered by a spouse are unparalleled, and by children. We are now going to hear from Ariella, followed by Lisa, Moshe, David, and on behalf of the grandchildren, Dovi.
And I took my father's pencil. He never followed my mother, but I try to walk in my parents' footsteps.
I'm going to move the mic because they can't hear you.
It's, first of all, Daddy, I love you. I didn't get to say I love you on Friday when I made it in from Israel. It's the greatest bracha. I always wanted to know what all those dollars you gave to the Mishloachim would end up with. And I felt like they paved my way to get in just in time to see you. I thought I would see you again. So you were in such pain, I didn't want to bother you anymore. But I got to say goodbye to you after your nifter last night. And it felt so right to be able to be in the room with Mommy. And then Lisa, Moshe, and Davey, we were waiting for you. And just to be able to talk to you, because I knew you were listening. The proudest thing I was and am is to be the daughter of Billy and Miriam Schreiber. I wear the name Schreiber so proudly, and it's so special to be here with so many people who knew me when I was Ariella Schreiber, and I always will be. As my mother mentioned, one of the very proud moments that we had together as a family was your 67th anniversary that you dreamt of and you wanted to celebrate at the Kotel. And we all came together in Israel. And you're going to hear a lot of Einstein quotes because my dad was a physicist, is a physicist, and he loved to quote Einstein at every occasion. So at that time, in his 67th bar mitzvah speech, he said, life is like a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep on moving. And then he went on to explain, I finally understand the analogy of a bicycle. You need two wheels, the front and the back, our future and our past, or rather our past, yes, our future and our past, moving in tandem to travel forward in life. That, Daddy, like Mommy said, was how you led your life. You always reminded us that we stood on the shoulders of the people that came before us. And it's a lesson that was imbued to all our children who today, a great many of the grandchildren are actually in Israel, and they actually went to Lisa's daughter Zahava's house, and they're all watching this together. So there's a reason that at the center of every event, you, Grandpa Billy, and Safta Miriam were. So talking about the past, there's no greater joy to you than being with your Seattle people, the Ragaways, the Gnauers, your beloved Paula, and above all, at the top, your brother, Uncle Manny, and Aunt Rita. We knew all your stories, the nicknames you were called, Vel, the tongue twisters, Brenner's Brothers Bagels. Oh, Daddy, I need you to remind me. We knew all about Camp Noah, the 13 years or so that your parents waited to have you and Uncle Manny. And of course, the lessons that you learned from Rav Shapiro. One of the most special shared experiences in recent years, my father, after his stroke, he decided that he wanted to travel. And like anything my father decided, he made it happen. So Mark and I got to double date with my parents to Dubai and to Greece and to Rhodes. And the most special trip was a road trip that we made to Seattle. It was the COVID summer of 2021. And we went to visit your house in Madrona Beach. And we stood there and you told us how, I guess you had a little bit of a troublemaker streak, that you would take your lunches every day and you throw them in the bushes. And then after about a month, the gardener came to your mother and said, "What are all these bags doing here?" And you had to fess up. I always imagine what Bubby Amy would say, "Belleville, what were you doing?" We sang the Garfield alma mater, and we have the picture to prove it. We went to Machazike Hadass, which was the shul that was founded by your father. And there were cornerstones there. And one of the cornerstones had a little black colored around it. And you admitted that you and Uncle Manny one day when you were bored had colored in the letters. But it was a trip not just about the past, because Daddy, you never just lived in the past, but it was a trip that you wanted to do because you taught us that you couldn't know the present without knowing its source. Knowing about where you came from is what gave the present meaning. And that applied, like Mommy said, to every aspect of your life. Daddy, you not only would retell a joke, but you could tell us 30 years later who told you that joke. And I can think of a few that were told by Bert Schoenbach. And whenever you would meet my father, or if you would be a new member of our family, my father would ask you your name. He'd ask you to spell it. Then he'd ask you your parents' name and where you came from, because he wanted to know your source. He wanted to know your whole story. And then he'd proudly re-encounter you a couple years later, and he'd say, I'm thinking specifically about one of my new friends in Modi, and Roseanne Teplitsky. He'd say, I know, you're Roseanne Teplitsky, right? And that was Daddy. I think one of the reasons that it was always so appropriate that Daddy loved his bar mitzvah parsha, as Mommy said. It was Ve'ela Shmot. And there was no more better parsha for my father, because he wanted to know your name. He wanted to know who you were. And he treated each person with so much respect. And Daddy also knew and taught us that everything that we have in our present was because of the vision of Bubby Gito and Zeta Morris, and of Zeta Izzy and Bubby Amy. And there was no greater kavod that my father and my mother gave to my grandparents, and what lessons we learned watching them care for them for 10 years. And those 10 years were in the prime of their lives. But that never stopped my father from looking towards the future. Like Daddy never got stuck on the back wheel of that bicycle. He never missed visiting us. In those days, we were having our children, and Daddy proudly was the one who showed up every time we had our kids. And I'm envisioning him coming when my oldest is Dover, when Yoni was born, and he bought Yoni so proudly those blocks with ABC blocks, and I proudly gifted them to my first granddaughter. He never missed a bris and dancing at a wedding. I learned from him, he says, if they invite me, they want me to be there, and I'm going to go. Mommy said Daddy was so photogenic, and he was. We were just looking at so many pictures on our WhatsApp group, the Schreiber gene pool. And the reason why he was so photogenic, because his smile was so genuine when he was with his children, his grandchildren, and especially his great-grandchildren. Like Mommy mentioned, the most special times I remember is being the Kol Na'arim, gathering all the children under the talis. And it was a practice that we continued in many family simchas. And we continue. But One of the reasons that I also thought about the quote was not also about the past and the present and how he used it to balance his life, was because, like Mommy said, my dad had superhuman strength in continuing to move forward in life. He had a stroke, and at that time, it was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, same time as Uncle Manny. We never thought that we would have so many years together and such rich years. Like you said, that we traveled and Daddy taught. And like my mother mentioned, just a few weeks ago before Daddy got on the airplane, and it was the greatest bracha, because if any one of those things that he really was sick with since for a while, if any one of those things had manifested, Daddy and Mommy wouldn't have gotten on that plane, but they did. But only after, like Mommy said, he graded 90 papers that were still on his table yesterday. 90 papers by himself. And there's even a note stuck in one of them from one of his students. Thanks you, Professor Schreiber, you're the best teacher. And then he got in a plane, wasn't feeling well. But like my kids say, Grandpa Billy had the right kind of stubbornness. And he made it. And just before this, earlier this morning, Dobie was showing me a video, and it was the best video. It was of the circle. It was Paula and Tovia and all the kids, my mom, the Chassan and Kala, Dasi and Yitzi, my kids, all dancing together. And my father was holding Paula's hands, and he was so proud that he was making everyone in that circle so happy. And then he grabbed Mommy, and he put down his walker, and he started to dance. And it's even a point where he went and he twirled Mommy, said, twirl. And that was my dad. I looked at so many Countess videos. He loved to dance. And most importantly, to dance with us. There's no greater moment than when we would pull him in the circle. Say, Daddy, I want to dance with you. So Daddy, today wasn't what we expected to be doing now. We really thought you were going to get better because you were so stubborn. But Daddy, you always taught us to find the good. You were such a Don the Kafschud and kind of guy. And I know that you would say to us that this was exactly the life that you wanted. So I'm not saying the ending, but this was where you would want to be right now. Like Mommy said, 54 years teaching as Professor Schreiber, like Sevi said, never retired. 58 years, married to the girl next door, truly the love of his life. Kindred spirits in their open hearts and their open hands. My mom, who is by his side, not just now, always. I mean, they were always together. But in the most recent days, with indomitable strength, indomitable strength. And just know, Daddy, that your children, your grandchildren, great-grandchildren will not only know the Schreiber family story, but we're all forever going to sing its song. In 1964, Joe Kamenetsky came to Ezzy Bezzy in Seattle. And my father would tell this story every year, Pesach, at the end of the Seder. Everyone would be winding down, but that's just when my father geared up, because like Dovie said, he was a hollow kind of guy. And so we would say, so Joe Kamenetsky came to Ezzy Bezzy in Seattle, and he taught us his song. The words are Shep Shilenu Zachar Lanu. And all we had to do was say, ah. And then everybody, and then everyone around the table, he said, everyone then said, ah. Yeah. And that song kind of became an initiation. If you wanted to get into Schreiber gene pool, right, you had to sing that song. And the greatest blessing was that and you, not only did you sing the song, you also had to learn the story. You had to learn the source. And so it was such a bracha that 3 months ago, Daddy, you got to teach that song to 3 new people. your grandson Yitzi's wife, Tassie, your granddaughter Nikki, who made it till 2:30 in the morning to the Seder. And Ryan, you tried so hard. Yeah. And your great-granddaughter Maya, who crazily was up at 2:30 in the morning, singing, doing and joining in, being a billy goat with Grandpa Billy Goat in Chad Gadya. So, Daddy, know that the song is forever. And I promise you that we'll keep on riding that bicycle because you taught us how to steer it so well. Balancing past, future, past, future, past, future. Shep Shilenu, Sachar Lanu Oz. Love you, Daddy. It's a little scary. Okay. Dearest Daddy, as I sit here listening to my thoughts, trying to capture and share your essence to a crowd of admirers and loved ones, it honestly feels daunting and overwhelming. I will humbly try to express what made you different and special, what made you my daddy. Was it your thirst for knowledge, your innate kindness and empathy, your quiet wisdom, your pride for your Jewish heritage, your unlimited generosity, your unwavering opinions, your steadfast work ethic, your blinding focus, your chuckle with a good Yiddish joke, your inspiring kibud av v'aim, your deep love for mommy, your undying devotion to your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, or was it your gentle humility? I guess it was all of those midot rolled into one. Daddy, you didn't stand tall in stature, but you were giant in my eyes. I tried humbly to emulate your midot, but your shoes are larger than life and difficult to walk in. Daddy, your legacy lives on in your children. The Kibud Av V'Aim, Ariella, Moshe, and Davy showed you always, especially these past few weeks, is a source of pride for you and mommy. My siblings had a better grasp on emulating my father. My sister is a teacher of generations and possesses that innate kindness and empathy. Moshe, you have daddy's generous spirit and focus and clarity to accomplish the task at hand always. And Davy, you have his silent wisdom and generous heart. Daddy, your legacy is a group of grandchildren that are rabbis, teachers, soldiers, actresses, philosophers, chazanim, businessmen, therapists, doctors, computer programmers, and students. It's a group of young men and women who are proud of their lineage and Jewish heritage. And as they grow, will accomplish great things in your honor and memory. I remember in recent years, I was envious because Moshe, Davy, and Ariella would call or come visit, and they would talk for hours with you about life, politics, business, childhood, and so much more. I didn't have that gift. I was different. I was a caretaker. I loved preparing your favorite foods when you came to visit and making sure you had a comfortable chair to sit in and kids around you to help you carry your books and your bags. I never wanted that role to end because Daddy, I loved taking care of you. I loved watching you tell jokes at the Shabbos table with Phil, have a l'chaim with Elliot, talk about the Staten Island days with Tully, play chess with any grandson that was up for a 3-hour game, tutor Zahav in physics, talk university with Leo, teach Yitzi and Zach the Masorah of laning, talk sports with Zach, and most recently smile widely, playing with the great-grandchildren. But some of my favorite memories are our family reunions for a simcha, whether it be in Staten Island, Chicago, Englewood, Morristown, Toms River, Florida, Israel, Teaneck. Daddy, your family has so much ruach, and we always had the most awesome time hanging out with each other. The most recent brachas were firstly, this past January, Jolie's bat mitzvah,
where the entire family was together, and no one can forget watching you dance with Mommy and Julie. It was a moment in time to hold on to. Then, more recently, we were blessed with Dasi and Yitzi Simcha. Even though you were not feeling well, Daddy, you chose to live in the moment, enjoying the ufot with family and friends, including David Jacobson, followed by walking hand in hand with Mommy down the aisle with a smile filled with immense pride and contentness. And lastly, walking up the stairs of the chuppah to give the bracha to the chassan and kala. That wedding was extra special for so many loved ones near and far, because I know it was the last time that you would see Daddy in your lifetime. Thank you to Team Grandpa. It took a village, and to each of you, I have incredible hakar satov for helping Grandpa navigate those 2 weeks in Israel, which was destined to be his final visit until he is laid to rest there, Bezrat Hashem, in the right time. So many favorite memories I'm trying to hold on to, and so sad that the time of creating new memories with you is over. Daddy, through the Bubby Express, you taught us all how to hold tight to the hand of a parent, and thereby creating memories that we will cherish always. Daddy, I learned from you how to be a caretaker. You always looked out for everyone and felt everyone's pain. You never allowed family pictures upstairs in the living room for all to see, in case we had guests who had struggles or would feel sad seeing pictures of a happy family. You would give me extra money when I went on school trips in case someone didn't have enough money for snacks. I should treat them. Every mashulach sat on your porch waiting eagerly for your return, and the waiters and waitresses at the Hilton and the Ilmbal knew you by your first name. You always gave generously with a full heart and a generous spirit, but never asking for anything in return. You never asked for kavod, and in place of that, you would request to give honors to others over yourself. You took such loving, respectful care of Bubby Amy and Zeta Izzy, showing us by example true kibud aim. But the person whose hand you held the tightest was Mommy. You loved Mommy so deeply and unconditionally, and you could never live a life without her. You loved her with a young love and an incredible desire to take care of her, and she loved taking care of you. Always, especially this past year, she took such beautiful care of you with the utmost kavod, respecting your wishes, devoting the entire schedule of the day to make sure your needs were taken care of. And in your final hours, Hashem gave Mommy clarity. She gave her wisdom to let you go peacefully, to leave the world the way you came into the world with simple breaths and a beating heart and with dignity. Daddy, don't worry. We will do as you taught us, and we will hold Mommy's hand tight. We will care for her and help her fill that void you left behind. Sadly, she has friends that could teach her and show her the way to move forward in the next stage of her journey they call life. Interestingly, Einstein's last quote before he passed, he said, "I want to go when I want to go. It is tasteless to prolong life artificially. I have done my share, and it's time to go." Daddy, you didn't want to live life as a patient confined to a house, walker, or wheelchair with a full-time aide. You wanted to live life standing tall, reading your physics books and the Science Times, watching Fox Business News, marking physics papers, writing checks to your family and tzedakahs, traveling to new places, visiting family in Israel, Chicago, Englewood, and Teaneck, teaching at CSI, and holding Mommy's hand tight through new adventures. That was the life you wanted to lead, and Hashem had rachamim and knew this about you, and he took you back early Sunday morning, Father's Day, to his kisei hakabod. The last time I saw you, Daddy, was this past Wednesday. We had just spent 2 full days together, and I wanted to kiss you goodbye. When I bent down to give you a peck on the cheek, you quickly moved away from me. The nursing assistant was in the room and asked, "Why don't you want your daughter to kiss you?" And I said without hesitation, "Because he doesn't want me to get sick." Daddy, you shook your head in agreement, and with a wry smile, and I kissed you on your forehead, not knowing that would be our last moment together. Even in our final moment, when you felt so sick, you still wanted to take care of me, because even at the age of 55, I was and always will be your little girl. Thank you, Daddy, for always watching over me and my family, always making sure we had everything we needed and more. My siblings had a feeling you were not coming home from the hospital, but I, the nurse, didn't. I guess you believe what you want to believe, and I wanted to believe I had more time with you, to love you and care for you. I didn't want to believe our time together was over. I love you so much, Daddy, and I ask you, Mechila, if ever I was over on your kavod and disrespected you in any way. I want to thank all my parents' friends and family for their friendship through the years and for coming here today to give kavod achron to my father. To Leah and Abram, thank you for being so kind and generous to my parents. There's no words for what you have done for them, and we will always be greatly appreciative. You are part of our extended family. To Rabbi Leierfeld, thank you for your wisdom, guidance, warmth, and support always. And thank you to the Chevra Kadisha for your chesed shel emet. To Elliot and my children, thank you for opening our home and our hearts to my parents always. I'm so thankful for all the joy you have given them and for making them such an integral part of our lives. Mommy, thank you for working so hard to give Daddy the life he wanted, filled with all his favorites. And Acharon Chaviv, thank you, Daddy, for being the best, for being you, for being my daddy. May be a Melitz Yosher for Am Yisrael. In the right time, pray for peace in Eretz Yisrael. I love you, Daddy, more than you will ever know, and I miss you so much already. With much love, Lisa, your forever Daddy's little girl.
Okay. It's tough following Lisa and Ariella. They always speak from the heart. Thank you to everyone for your calls, texts, and messages. I was truly touched by each one. I'm sorry for not responding, but your words and your thoughts were all taken to heart. Thank you, Robert Leierfeld, Hatzalah, Chavirim, Chevra Kadisha, and all those who have helped over the years. You've all honored my father in such a special way. We're all touched by your actions and are a constant source of inspiration for your endless chesed to the community. I honestly don't know how to do this. How does one in such a short amount of time bring the appropriate amount of honor to a parent, a father who spent their entire life protecting, raising, guiding, and loving you? These past few months have been quite a journey, watching my father weaken physically. I do not think you were ever truly prepared for these moments, but here we are. I have to say, for a man who did a little exercise, watched a lot of TV, and had a very questionable diet, he always pushed forward and powered through life. Stroke 6 years ago, a multitude of physical ailments. He kept moving forward, teaching at College of Staten Island until the very end, almost 55 years, daily visits to Barnes and Nobles, trips around the world. My father was a very determined individual, not letting these setbacks impede the joys in his life. The memories of our life together has played out like an endless reel in my head over the last few weeks, channeling a lifetime of wonderful memories, too many to count. Seattle, Staten Island, Beaver Lake, CSI, JFS, YISI, SIJBL. I don't know if Davey knows what that is. Chief on by Huskies, Seahawks, real estate, stocks, politics, family, children. You can go on and on and on. I think Lisa, Ariella, and my mom have done this, all cascading through my head. However, in the spirit of Albert Einstein and one of my father's favorite quotes, everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. So I'm going to keep this simple.
For many of you who knew him for much of his life, and for many of you who knew him very little, if at all, to honor his memory, I'm going to touch on who he was and a few different attributes or characteristics that really defined his essence. He was a simple person. He was truly a man, did not like change. Same job for 50 years, same house for 50 years. Come to think of it, same hairstyle for 50 years. Am I there yet? No. Drove cars until there were no miles left on the odometer. Basically had the same daily routine at Barnes & Nobles for 30 plus years. And of course, his dinner basically vacillated between roasted chicken and salmon pretty much every single day, unless you want to go crazy and have a hot dog or something. His worth was not defined by the car he drove, fancy clothes, high-end watches, material items. The only true luxury he ever afforded himself was the occasional business class seat to Israel and the days luxuriating at the Tel Aviv Hilton in the executive lounge. Life was never meant to be complicated for him. He tried really hard to keep things simple. Show up to your job, pay your bills, close all loose ends, and always, and I mean always, do the right thing. His level of integrity and honesty was beyond anyone I've ever met in my lifetime. I have to say, I don't think I appreciated this growing up. No, it was only later in life, as I matured as a person, as a professional, that I understand how blessed I was to have this sort of influence in my life. Character matters. Above all else, this is something he exemplified in his daily life. The kavod he was given when he walked in the room is not a reflection of his wallet, the clothes he was wearing, what his job was. It was about his character and the way he carried himself with his family, with his community, his professional life. He was always consistent, never transactional, always finding the good in people, even those who have wronged him. This takes a level of selflessness that many aspire to, but cannot teach because we're all imperfect. But for him, this attribute came naturally. And when it comes to humility, maybe as an extension of the simplicity of his life, he was also a very humble individual. What we've said before, and what many do not know, or may know, is I wasn't just smart, he was brilliant. Blessed with a beautiful mind, sparked by curiosity and the wonder of a child. I always took great pride in this, and I knew that no matter where I went, I was always sitting next to the smartest man in the room. I'm not sure how much nachas I got from watching him just digest physics books, Gemara, Tanakh with such ease. You could talk to him about concepts of real estate, finance, and any tax law, and just pick it up, and then always ask that question I never had an answer to. So frustrating. A mind truly blessed of the angels was not a source of hubris for him. It was a mechanism to give back to the world, to his students at the College of Staten Island, to numerous individuals that he tutored over the years, and of course, his family. This was a gift from Shemayim, shared with the world for 82 years, all the way to the end. His body broke down, but his beautiful mind was never taken from him, and I'll be forever thankful for that. Kibud Av V'Em, the speech would not complete without highlighting how exceptionally devoted my father was to both of his parents. Myself and my siblings have been blessed to watch both of my parents devote themselves with dedication and love to their parents. From a young age, I saw this, the way my father treated Zeta Izzy, daily phone calls, long trips to Seattle. And then as Bubby Amy came sick, she came to live with us in Staten Island. I watched for 10 years as he selflessly devoted his time and attention to her health and welfare. It was always his top priority, and it was always to the exclusion of nothing. I don't think he took vacation for a decade, or even went away for a weekend. I learned a lot in those years, watching you and Mommy with Bubby Gittel, that I've tried to emulate. I hope that you thought I gave to you, Daddy, what you gave to your own parents. I tried very hard to honor you, and I'm sorry if you think I failed at any time. I tried to call as much as I could or visit. However, life became demanding with family and work, and I could not call as often or talk to you as much as I would have liked. I will always carry a piece of sadness with me that I cannot do better. But I'm so glad we got that one last moment last Thursday at the hospital, just sitting with you discussing Seattle, real estate, the Gnowers, anything else I know you like to discuss. It was all out there. I'm not sure I walked to the hospital today thinking that that'd be the last time I speak, or we would speak, but I will forever be grateful to having had that time together. So friends, family, community, this is who my father was. Brilliant but humble man, dedicated to his passion for teaching, always doing the right thing, and a keen understanding of family and responsibilities to the prior generations. I said to Arieli the other day, I cannot recall a time when he said something bad about another person. Maybe I'm glossing over some negative memories, but I would tell you his level of deference and generosity knew no bounds. Charities, communication, community, people in need. He rarely said no, and if he did, it's because he did not have any more to give. Meshulachim walking up and down the block, stalking our house because of his endless generosity. I still remember back in the 90s, some burglars tried to break into our house. My father came back and said they didn't need to break in. They would have walked and knocked on the door to give him a TV. And then I said, if we were caught, would you prosecute? He goes, absolutely not. Rationality was never his strong point. But he was funny like that. But that's what made him who he was as an individual. He was his own man. He was his own man, a true one of one. So, Daddy, you are at peace now. I know it was a lot to bear over these last few years, but you persevered. Teaching till the end, attending bar mitzvahs, family celebrations, and the recent wedding halfway around the world. You always found the strength to dance and celebrate with those joys in your life. And at Yitz's wedding, you got to dance one last time with Mommy, your family, Paula and Tuvia, David and Zevi, and of course, Yitzi and Dasi. Got to keep the chassan and color together, right? I know you fought to be there, and somehow you found the strength to do it. So we close the chapter here. Somewhere far away, the Shivas Regal is being poured, and the guests are all waiting for Billy Schreiber. St. Izzy, Bobby Amy, Uncle Manny and Esther, Uncle Izzy, Bert, Schoenbach, Melech, Bernie Kaplan, Barbara, Jerry and Jan, and countless others who were dear to you. I know how much you care for them. And now it's their turn to dance with you once again. No more spinal stenosis, aspiration pneumonia, walkers, wheelchairs, awful nuisance hospital stays. You're now free to fly. Smiling, telling your best toothbrush joke. Tonight, the angels are singing Shef Shilenu and dancing the Kazachka in the clouds. As our beloved Aunt Ruthie once wrote so beautifully, you bought yourself a heaven tonight. We love you and miss you, and you'll forever be in our hearts. Goodbye, Daddy.
Never easy following up my siblings in the rear. I'm 49 years old and I still look up to my siblings every day. Thank you for all those words of recognition of our dad, and some of them I will say will be repetitive. I do want to say to Daddy and Mommy, I'm sorry. I got a speeding ticket last night and I did get a parking ticket today. I will pay it on time, but you are more generous with paying. Give me a little leeway there. Dad, I want you to know that in your honor in coming here from Chicago, I had to take a few Ubers, and I made sure to give them very nice tips. For those of you unaware, my dad was a great tipper. Before I begin, I just want to give a disclaimer. Stay true to my father's integrity. Any quote I recite is a paraphrase of what I believe I heard my father say. I have to say is that I've seen professionally a lot of suffering in this world, and the pain that I feel is nothing ever prepared me for. As everyone mentioned about Einstein, we can't provide a tribute to my father without a quote from Einstein. It is as follows. If I'm going to pay tribute to my father, I have to, no, sorry. If you want your children to be intelligent, read them fairy tales. If you want them to be more intelligent, read them more fairy tales. My father very much wanted his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren to grow up to be intelligent thinkers who made independent decisions and help others live happier lives. We didn't learn this by him reading us fairy tales, but we learned it from the fairy tale life he created for all of us. My dad and my mom are the main characters in our fairy tale, and he did the best job to give us a fairy tale upbringing. No insult to Staten Island, but there aren't many fairy tale writers imagine starting their story in a land far, far away in a place called Staten Island. And yet, I truly believe our fairy tale began here, with a fairy tale community being raised by fairy tale parents. Howard Gardner, a famous educator, once said, "Children don't follow what their parents say, they follow what they do." And what my dad role modeled made him not just an incredible human, but someone who seemed almost too good to be true, like a character out of a storybook. Let me share just a sliver of the superhuman values my father lived by each and every day. My father never promised us anything. Out of fear, he would not make whole on his promise. Literally, growing up, I would desperately try to get him to promise me something, but he never did. Just like in chess, a game he loved, he always knew the first move is just as important as your last move. My father never said a bad word about anyone, and I don't mean gossip. That is a given. He never even criticized bad actions that were warranted of criticism. I would point out the overt bad actions of specific people, and the worst he would say was, "Davey, maybe that's possible." My father never held a grudge. I would often hold a grudge in my heart for him, and he would teach me to let it go. Daddy, I'm still working on this one. My father didn't believe in punishment. He trusted humanity would do the right thing. I don't recall ever being punished growing up, and that's not to say I never did anything wrong. I remember once talking with my dad about people committing crimes, and my dad said he didn't think anyone should go to jail. He said if they would just say they're sorry, won't do it again, that should be enough. He trusted people and never gave up hope that people will do the right thing. He was very much an optimist. My father never turned down anyone who asked for money. He'd give, and then he'd give even more. I've watched him so many times give money in the pushka over there, and he'd give, and then he'd reach back into his wallet and give again, and the same to other people. I always worried about his wallet, and so did he. I worried because he would take it out all the time in public to give people money, and as a result, I would worry that they would mug him. He always worried that he would lose his wallet because this was the vehicle that he used to lessen the burden of others. His empathy for people suffering is only matched by my mom. All of us have the incredible fortune of sitting in front row observing the actions of the two most empathic people in the world. What a lottery I have won to be able to call them mom and dad. My father didn't understand materialism. He drove his green machine car, as David Jacobson nicknamed it, until a car literally couldn't make left turns anymore. And he was so proud. He still figured out how to get to the college. I always felt some guilt for trying to teach someone so pure and holy about materialism. As he got older and under our influence, he enjoyed some of the luxuries of life, like the Hilton Inbal Hotel in Israel. Those hotels may have serviced people with far greater monetary wealth, but no one was kinder to their staff and tipped them better. You have to understand, my father didn't tip for service. He tipped out of the belief the money in his pocket had far better use and value being in someone else's pocket. My father was incredibly loyal to the college he worked, to the food he ate, to the hotels he stayed, to the friends he made, to the community he lived, and the family he created. He loved it all and never took it for granted. My father was passionate about physics. He never worked a day in his life. Saying being a physicist was his job wouldn't make any sense. Being a physics professor was just that. It was part of his being, his passion. I remember saying to him after his stroke, "Dad, you literally have years of accumulated sick days." And he chuckled about how many days he had accumulated. I don't think in 54 years of teaching, he took one sick day. Recently, after finishing his 54th year at the College of Staten Island this past semester, he was stressed before the trip to Israel about grading 90 final exams. I said, "Dad, let someone else grade them." Without hesitation, he said, "No, I need to do it. Some students may not have gotten the full answer correct, but I want to make sure I read it carefully and give partial credit when needed. I worry someone else wouldn't take the time to do that." He cares so much about being fair and about the education of his students. My father would literally give the shirt off his back. My father hated war, not for political reasons, but because he despised violence. I am thankful I never felt the need to rebel against my father. I and the rest of our family appreciated his brilliance, his godly generosity, and his unwavering moral compass. Dad, I always took great pride in telling people you were my father, that you were a physicist, and that I had the honor of always being the son of the smartest person in the room. Your brilliance kept me humble and taught me the value of surrounding myself with people far smarter than me. We both love Mommy's lemon meringue pie, and I always appreciated the major sacrifice you made in saving me the last piece. I'm sorry, Dad, that I peaked in math in 5th grade, that I wasn't at your level in science, and that I may have lied to you about my grades in physics and possibly calculus. Forgive me, but at least my core math skills are still very strong. You always gave me far too much credit, but the unearned faith clearly motivated me and gave me the belief in myself. I realize now this was the reason why you were such a great teacher. You always believe people will figure out how to get to the right answer. Dad, Daddy, I always appreciated your brilliance, admired your kindness, and stood in awe of your moral compass. You were truly one of a kind, and I couldn't have been prouder to call you my father. Please forgive me for the ways I fell short and my inability to live up to the extraordinary role model you always exhibited. I know there are times in life I wronged you, and each of them lives sadly in my heart forever, but I ask you now for forgiveness. And I know you do. I know you're saying right now, oh, Davy, you're being ridiculous. But you really didn't set fair expectations. Fairy tales are supposed to be make-believe, and so are their characters, and yet I got to grow up in a real one. Thank you for being you every single day. We, your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, are far more intelligent because of it. And rest assured, this fairy tale isn't over. Your princess, Mommy, will be okay. We will take great care of her and the rest of the family you love so deeply. Happy Father's Day. Thank you for being my fairy tale dad and giving us the fairy tale life that only you and Mommy could create. Your infinitely proud son. Love you, miss you, Davy.
On behalf of the grandchildren, Dovey will be speaking. He is a Kohen, so he is outside, but he is connected into the room. Dovey, it's all yours.
Thank you. I'm sitting in an alley outside the Young Israel Staten Island, a Kohen Basada, thinking about Sabeno Moreno, Zev Elimelech ben Nechama Yitzchak Isaac. I feel depleted and overwhelmed, incapable of feeling and incapable of capturing all that you were. Ish Eshkolot and Ish Shekulo Bo. You contained multitudes. V'hayita lanu le'enayim. You are our compass and astronomer, our northern star. Your integrity, your humility, your stubbornness, your brilliance, your generosity, your humor, and your love, your deep, pure love for every one of us. I remember the first time I asked you to learn Talmud with me. It was over Rosh Hashanah, and I was sitting around my dining room table in Detroit, and all I can remember is getting to the word Yolif, and ironically not knowing what it meant. Yolif, you explained to me, means to learn. There was nothing that made me prouder than bringing up a topic that piqued your always childlike curiosity. One of these countless moments I remember discussing with you was the origin of the phrase, dwarfs on the shoulders of giants. For weeks on end, whenever we speak, we pick up our conversation as if we never stopped. It felt like we were always learning. And perhaps the highest compliment I received from you were those moments that you referenced one of those treasured jokes or a piece of Torah you carefully and lovingly crafted for a simcha. And you say to me, Dobie, you know this one. I've told it to you before. To know that you felt that I was a part of the conversation, that I grasped even a piece of you. And ish shekulo bo. My mind is flooding with memories of smachot, sidari, so many memories. I end with gratitude I'm a Tutsuki. Gratitude, Hashem, that my wife Michelle and your two great granddaughters, Maya Zahava and Navael, got to know you as their grandpa. And Tutsuki. Ilakach tov natati lasem. Torati al ta'azod. Eitz chaim hi lemachazikim ba, v'tomta miushar. Derasa darfei noam, v'chol mitivotei shalom. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva, tzadei shemeinu kekeder. And from this Kohen Basadeh, a final bracha in the young Israel of Staten Island for my grandpa, as he's covered in his holly again. Symbolically, I know holding us all tight underneath. While I might not have the requisite simcha in this moment to give a bracha, I know that my heart is filled with ahava rabah, with ahavat olam, and I make this bracha with a true sense of shleiut. Grandpa, Sabenu Moreinu. Nai, 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 nai. Nai, 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 nai. Nai, 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 nai. Nai, 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 nai. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Yahweh Adonai Adonai Elecha v'chunecha Yisa Adonai Adonai Elecha Yaseh Lecha Shalom. I love you, Grandpa.
It is a little bit late. I will only speak for 2 minutes on behalf of the community. When I mentioned to Moshe that I might be speaking, and he said I should, I said it depends on the family. Very often families speak, and there is nothing left for a rabbi to add. And I'm just going to add a pasuk from the Parsha. Passed away on Shabbos. And I know that I've learned from my father and all the other Sfarim that you could always find a remez in the Parsha of that week for anything that goes on. And I'd like to tell you what I think the pasuk is for Dr. Professor William Billy Schreiber. The Meraglim go into Eretz Yisrael, and they mess up big time. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to punish the entire generation, except for the women. And two people stood out. Which two people stood out? Kalev and Yoshua. And the pasuk says, why are they special? Why are they not going to be punished? Why will they have the zchus to enter Eretz Yisrael from the whole generation? Ekev, Haisa, Ruach, Acheres, Imo. Because they had a special, different sense of right and wrong, and they were head and shoulders above everybody else. Ruach, Acheres, Bo. You've heard from Miriam and from all of the children. He was brilliant, smartest man in the room, professor for 55 years. When I was in the hospital visiting him just on Wednesday, Thursday, I said, are you finally going to retire? He laughed, and he quoted something from Einstein. He loved quoting Einstein and telling stories of Einstein. We discussed, by the way, how smart Einstein was, and we'll tell you a different time. But he says, I will not retire. I might not teach, but there are many papers I need to write. I said, why don't you just hang out with Miriam? You love Miriam, you love your children. He says, if my mind is not learning, whether it's Gemara, Tanakh, I cannot. And there are papers I need to write, many books I need to read. He was humble, he was brilliant, he was a Baal Tzedakah like you've never seen before. I've gone to many people to raise funds. Not once did he turn me away. Not once. We had a window that needed to be dedicated. It was the most expensive of the windows. And I remember saying to Avigdor Fried, I'm going to go to William Billy Schreiber. He never ever turned me down. The only thing he might say was, you might have to wait a day or two for me to transfer funds. But he never turned anybody down. Meshulachim would always ask me, where do the Schreibers live? I never gave your address. I don't think it's right. I thought enough people have it. I did not give it. If someone needed a meal, I would send them to you. But for money, I never sent. Smartest man in the room, most humble man in the room, never a harsh word, never lashon hara, never a complaint. You would think someone that was Rosho Verubo, so much intelligence and thought, and as a father and as a person, he was literally above many others. You would think he would once in a while be condescending or harsh or judgmental. Never. The sweetest man in the world. If I need one pasuk in the parsha to speak about Professor Dr. William Billy Schreiber, Ruach Acheres Bo. He was a unique individual that is hard to emulate. And as I will mention, they don't make him like they used to. Ruach Acheres Bo, in everything that he did, he was unique and one of a kind. That was Professor Dr. William Billy Schreiber. We're going to call the Chazan, Jacobson. I just want to mention there are many people in the room that are friends of the family. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but the friends of the family that have known the Schreibers for the last 50, 55 years are not friends. They're family. This is the family of Billy and Miriam Schreiber. You are all family, which is a level of friendship which I've rarely seen in any community. Chazan, it's all yours. Please rise.
Out of here. Oh, same one.
Bigger, a little bit bigger.
Hmm.
I heard the phone. Seven.
This one. This one.
Yes, yeah.
He is Melch Previous Isaac. I know that. I know that for years. Okay, go without it. El Melech Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hametzei Menuchos Nechona Al Kanfei Hashchina B'malos Kedoshim Utahorim Kizoar Harokia Mazhirim Es Nishmas Reb Zeveli Melech Reb Yitzchak Isaac Shehalach Liolamo Ba'avur Shebli Nedanitain Staka Biad Haskaras Nishmaso Biganei Dentehei Menuchaso Lachain Balarachamim Yastirehu Viseser Knafav Liolamim V'yitzrar B'tzrar HaChayim Is Nishmaso Adonai Hu Nachalaso V'yanuach B'shalom Al Mishkavo V'nomar Amen.
The people that brought the Aron in, can they please bring the Aron out? Everyone wait for the Aron and family to go out. The Kavura will be taking place in Beth Israel Cemetery in Woodbridge, New Jersey. Shiva will be observed in the Schreiber home, 58 McDonald Street. Shachris every morning is at 8. Mincha Marv is at 8:20. Please help with the minyanim. Please do not visit from 6 to 7 at night. So the family can eat dinner in peace, and please give them time off between 12 p.m. and 1:30 p.m. There was an email that went out with a number of Mindy Goldberg to arrange for the meals. We want to thank everybody for coming. Again, he was a prince of a man. He married a princess and a queen, and he will be sorely missed. The community, in many ways, relied upon the Schreibers for their wisdom, their chachma, and all that they did. Please wait for the Aron to go out. Whoever brought the Aron in, can you please come up?